Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Nickel City Church. How are you doing today? Come on, let's try that again. How are you guys doing today? We're going to jump into a time of worship. Let's have some fun. Let's give God all the honor, glory, and praise. Come on. There is no shadow that has ever overcome your life. There is no rival that has ever stand against your mind. You've always been with us. Every battle you've already won. You've already won. There is no weapon that has ever left its mark on you. There is no army with the power to conquer truth. You've always been with us. Every battle you've already won. You've already won. Come on, show me one thing. Come on, church. Show me one thing you can't do. Show me a mountain he can't move. He's the God of the breakthrough, and anything is possible. Show me one thing that's too hard. Show me a waters he can't part. He's the God of the breakthrough, and anything is possible. Is possible. There is a kingdom that's advancing at the speed of light, and in his kingdom every dead thing is bound to rise. Oh God, our Redeemer, he is faithful to revive. Oh, he will revive. Show me one thing. Show me one thing you can't do. Show me a mountain he can't move. He's the God of the breakthrough, and anything is possible. Show me one thing that's too hard. Show me a waters he can't part. He's the God of the breakthrough, and anything is possible. Is possible. All of my fear I will turn into praise. Shake off despair as I sing out your name. A victory dance, I will dance out in faith. I will crush disappointment and break every chain. All of my fear I will turn into praise. Shake off despair as I sing out your name. A victory dance, I will dance out in faith. I will crush disappointment and break every chain. All of my fear I will turn into praise. Shake off despair as I sing out your name. A victory dance, I will dance out in faith. I will crush disappointment. Show me one thing you can't do. Show me a mountain he can't move. He's the God of the breakthrough, and anything is possible. Show me one thing that's too hard. I start to forget all of the good things you did? When did I throw away faith for the impossible? How did I start to believe you weren't sufficient for me? Why do I talk myself out of seeing miracles? You are more than able. 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 Who am I to deny what the Lord can do? Oh, who am I, Lord? Now I see all that I have. I've got my confidence back. I put my trust in the one who still does miracles. You do miracles. You are more than able. You are more than able. Yes, you are. You are more than able. You are more than able. Who am I to deny what the Lord can do? Oh, you can do all things. I believe it, Lord. Come on, church, let's sing this out. Let's sing this out in unity. Let's sing this out in faith today. That when we come together, we cry out His name today, that He'll move miracles, He'll do miracles in our lives. There's nothing too great for our God. Let us not put a time stamp on Him. Let us not put limits on Him, because He can do all things. Come on, let's sing this out. Can you imagine, with all of the faith in the room, what the Lord can do? What the Lord can do. It's gonna happen, just like the way Maker do. He's gonna move. He's gonna move. Can you imagine, with all of the faith in the room, what the Lord can do? What the Lord can do. It's gonna happen, just like the way Maker do. He's gonna move. Come on. He's gonna move. Can you imagine, with all of the faith in the room, what the Lord can do? What the Lord can do. And it's gonna happen, just like the way Maker through. He's gonna move. One more time. He's gonna move. Can you imagine, with all of the faith in the room, what the Lord can do? What the Lord can do. And it's gonna happen, just like the way Maker through. He's gonna move. He's gonna move. Anything is possible. We sing that out. Anything is possible. Declare that today. Anything is possible. Who am I to deny what the Lord can do? Anything can do all things. Nothing's too great for you. God, the victory's already won. Oh, we sing it out, Lord. 'Cause you are more than able. 'Cause you are more than able. Oh, yes, you are, Lord. You are more than able. You are more than able. Who am I to deny what the Lord can do? God, we just believe that today. That you're more than able to take away any history in our life. You're more than able to conquer any mountain, Lord. So we come before you today, just asking for revival in our lives, Lord. Let us not put limits on you. Let us not put boundaries on you, and just let you move in our lives, Lord. The Lord is my shepherd, and He is everything I need. So I will not worry, I will not fear the enemy. He said that He loves me. He said that He's with me, even though I walk through the valley of shadow and death, and still I know He has good plans. He has good plans for me. So I will take heart in deserts and gardens. He has good plans. He has good plans for me. If I know my Father, I know my Father has. Oh, He has good plans for me. The Lord is my Savior, so why should I doubt my victory? Why would I question the rod and the staff that comforts me? He quiets the waters, He quiets the storms inside of me. So what could be better than walking with Him when I believe He has good plans? He has good plans for me. So I will take heart in deserts and gardens. He has good plans. He has good plans for me. If I know my Father, let's sing He has good plans. I'll be dwelling. Come on, let's sing that out today. Surely your goodness and mercy will follow after me, so fear will not find me, 'cause I'll be dwelling in the house of God. Surely your goodness and mercy will follow after me, so fear will not find me, 'cause I'll be dwelling in the house of God. Surely your goodness and mercy will follow after me, so fear will not find me, 'cause I'll be dwelling in the house of God. He has good plans. He has good plans for me. So I will take heart in deserts and gardens. He has good plans. He has good plans for me. If I know my Father, I know my Father has good plans. We sing, if I know my Father, I know my Father has good plans. And if he told the sun when to rise, and it did, he will again. And if he told the storm to be still, and it did, he will again. And if he told the sea where to split, and it did, he will again. And if he told the walls when to fall, and it did, oh, he sing the chains and the chains when to break, and they did, he will again. And if he told the bones come alive, and they did, oh, he told that stone again. He told the stone roll away, and it did, he will again. And if he told the grave let him go, and it did, he will again, and again, and again, and again, he will again. Oh, we sing miracle, miracle after miracle, open door after open door. Here it comes, so get ready for another one. Another one is on the way. Miracle after miracle, open door after open door. Here it comes, so get ready for another one, 'cause another one is on the way. Another one is on the way.
Let's just sing that again.
Another one is on the way.
Let's just sing the chorus again. Let's believe it today.
Another one is on the way.
We're believing that another miracle is on the way today.
Miracle after miracle, open door after open door. Here it comes, so get ready for another one. Another one is on the way. Miracle after miracle.
Let's just believe that for our life.
Open door
We've
after
seen
open
God do so
door.
much good in the past, and we're believing that He's going to keep doing it again today.
Another one is on the way.
And let's just go forward in that today, knowing that He is not done with us yet. He's not done with His story for us. He is still working in our lives. He's going to provide breakthrough for us today. He's going to keep working in our lives. Thank you so much, worship team, for for leading us in that time together. You guys can go ahead and have a seat, and we're just so glad that you are here with us this morning.
Yeah, welcome to Nickel City. My name is Chelsea, and this is Jada. And again, we're just so genuinely glad that each and every one of you is here today. We love seeing you each and every Sunday, and being able to say hi and get those weekly updates on what's going on in your life and how you all are doing. But we just want to give you a little reminder that church isn't just on a Sunday. Having these relationships doesn't just start and end here. It is a 7 days a week kind of thing. Church is what we are and who we are and what we do. So we want to just encourage you to carry that on throughout the week. Don't let church and relationships just be built here on a Sunday, but find opportunities during the week to do that as well. And a great way we can do that is by joining a team. Being a part of a team helps us grow in our relationship, not only with God, but also with each other and in community. So we want to encourage you today, if you haven't taken that next step of joining a team, get plugged in, go fill out a Yellow Next Steps card in the back and join one today, because they are so beneficial to our walk with God.
Yeah, and there's so many different places where you can find your perfect fit for the giftings that God has given you specifically in your life. So definitely do that. Highly encourage being part of a team and getting plugged in and becoming equipped in that way as well. And this also goes along with the message series that we've been in for the past several weeks, talking about build your church and talking about our purpose in the church. And if you missed any of these weeks, make sure you go back on the Nickel City Church app and get caught up, because there are so many amazing messages and just great things that we can take from them and grow in as well. And while you're on the app, do a little exploring, click around a little bit, check out the calendar. You can even go to the giving tab and give right through there as well, which I love doing because it's super easy, and it's also fun being able to see all of the cool features on there too. But recently I've been hearing testimonies of people that say that when they started giving, when they started tithing consistently, they saw God show up in their life in another way. And I know personally, I can attest to that as well. I know in conversation we've talked about it as well, that we've seen God break through either in our finances or in another area of our life that maybe we weren't expecting or we haven't seen in that way before. And this isn't just my story. This isn't just Chelsea's story. This isn't just a story that you hear, but this can be your story too. So if you're not doing it yet, if you're not giving, trust God. Step out on a limb and trust Him with your finances, because when we surrender, we submit everything that we have to Him, we can see Him show up in such amazing ways in our life. So again, I said the app, that's a great way that you can do that. You can also go scan the QR code. There it is, right up on the screen, right on time as always. You can also drop off cash or check in the back as well. And again, it's just a great way to take your faith a next level, a next step deeper, and be able to trust Him with everything that you are.
Yeah, when we come into a place of obedience and submission to God, He can do way more than we ever could with our finances, time, or energy. So yeah, like Jada said, that is a great opportunity to see a new way that God can bless you in your life, whether it's in your finances or in other areas of your life as well. And again, we've just been hearing so many great stories about how God is impacting and changing your lives, and also the ways that He is working in through this church. He's doing such amazing things here at Nickel City, and we're just so grateful to see the evidence of God through everything, week in and week out. And we really want to encourage you all to come back next Sunday as well, because we are going to be having communion. This is going to be a great time of reflection, just to remember what Jesus did for us, the sacrifice He paid for us, and also just a way to amplify the things that we do too. We sacrifice for Him, and just remember why we are doing what we are doing every single week. And so we want to invite you back out next Sunday for communion, because it's going to be such a special and sacred time.
Yeah, and we're starting off a new series too, so double the fun. And the week after that is actually Mother's Day too. So a reminder, it is coming up quick, and we love being able to celebrate every Sunday with you, but especially the special moments. So we just can't wait to see you next week for communion, and then also for Mother's Day as well coming up. But that's all that we have for you guys today. Let's get ready for the message.
glad that you are here. My name is Eli. I'm the lead pastor here at Nickel City Church, in case we've not gotten the chance to meet. And just honestly, we're so glad that you're here. Welcome. Glad that you're here to be a part of what God is doing in this city and in this church. And here's where we are. We are finishing up our series called Build Your Church. And the idea behind this series is that God has a design for the church, a blueprint. And it's not up to us just to figure it out ourselves or to kind of make our own thing, but rather that as we follow God's instruction, as we follow God's plan and blueprint for the church, it leads us to a very beautiful thing. And so that's where we've been. And last week we got to hear from our dear friend Christina. Man, wasn't that so good? Wasn't it? Yeah, thank you so much. We talked about giving up our preferences and instead tapping into something greater, something that God has for us. And can I just say, Christina, I just want to honor you. Man, what a great message, but also just who you are as a person. You are a great leader. You are a great teacher. You are a great mom. And so thank you for that. I think I speak for all of us when I say that challenge, as well as the honesty and transparency, sharing your own story and even life with Judah and your son. And thank you. Thank you for that. It was very refreshing. And I just want to publicly say, kind of as your church family, man, we're so proud of you guys, you and Phil, the way that you parent. Seriously, it's inspiring the way that I've watched you fight for Judah, fight for the best care, while also not placing undue limitations, like calling him up to even greater things. And he's such a special boy. So thank you, and great job. We're proud of you. We really are. And so what a great message last week. And now it's bringing us into kind of our finale. We are finishing up here by talking about God's design and structure for the church. So if the church is meant to be more like a family, which we talked about week 1, and we're supposed to live in unity, week 2, and we lay down our rights and our preferences for the greater good, week 3, well, how does that all actually happen? How does it actually all come together? Because inevitably there's going to be moments where we disagree, moments where we see things differently, moments where we're hurt or offended or people do wrong to us, moments where we are coming at things from different perspectives or life experiences. So how can we really accomplish this beautiful design that God has? And so that's what we're going to focus on today. We're going to talk about structure, mainly through the idea of submission. This is going to be our word for today. And I've taught about this a little bit, but I think it's so important for us as a church, and it's such an important principle for us to understand. And so let me give you kind of a recap of what submission is. See, there's a difference between agreement and submission. And it is so important that we understand the difference. Agreement looks a little bit like this. Well, if I agree with the decisions that are being made, and if I like the leader's personality, and if they can convince me that it's worth my time and my effort and my finances, then under those conditions, I will show up and participate and engage. So that's what many people live in. It's like, well, as long as I agree, then I'll show up. And as long as I agree, then we're in good standing. But there's a problem with this. Because right off the bat, we start with this attitude of, well, you need to convince me. You need to prove to me. You need to convince me. And I think that this, when we limit our participation, when we limit our presence, our involvement to the idea of, well, we need to agree, it puts pastors and leaders in a really tough spot. In fact, we're going to talk about that in a little bit. So agreement by itself doesn't work. Like agreement alone doesn't work. But submission, on the other hand, is understanding that God has a structure and order. That there's an order to things. And although I might not always like it, although I might not always understand it, I understand that it is beneficial to my life and to the church as a whole. And so when it comes to our relationships, if we can understand this idea of submission, it actually starts us off with a healthy trust. Not a cynical, prove it to me, or show me, impress me type of mentality. But we start off with a trust that, hey, I believe that this is God's order. And so I have your back, even in moments that we might not agree. Now, I get it. I think that this word submission can sound like a really bad thing. especially if you've had unhealthy leadership or served under bad leaders. And so you're like, me submit to them? Like, I don't want anything to do with them. I don't trust them. I don't think they're a good leader, but you're telling me to submit. Or maybe you're coming into this from a place where you're like, man, I did that once. And I got hurt because of it. And I understand the hesitation, but for us, I really want us to understand that in God's design, if we look at submission and if we look at this in a healthy way, I think it's going to open up opportunities in our lives that really would not be found on our own. And so I want to break this down today because this is actually something that God requires. This is part of his blueprint for the church. Yet because it's unpopular, it's not something that's often taught or talked about. And so let's open up Ephesians chapter 5, verse 21. It says this, "And further, submit to one another out of reverence for Christ." Okay, so the first half of this chapter is telling us, hey, you have to live the right way. Like, make sure that you're living a life worthy and following God's standards. But then here, verse 21, it says, submit to one another, not because they are the perfect leader, not because they have it all together, not because they have all the answers, but submit out of your reverence for Christ. So it's, again, that God has a blueprint. And out of respect for him, that is the reason why we practice submission, out of our reverence for Christ. Now, if we look at this word submit, in the Greek, it's actually a Greek military word. I want to read this to you, the definition of this word for word. It's a Greek military word meaning to arrange in a military fashion under the command of a leader. In non-military use, it was a voluntary attitude of giving in, cooperating, assuming responsibility, and carrying a burden. So if we were to break this down very simply, we could say that submission is simply this, saying, I understand that God has an order of things, and I'm willingly, with a good attitude, falling into that order to participate, to carry some of the burden or that load in a way that honors God's structure. And when we can understand this, although our culture might be against the idea of submission, I will say it is the only way we can actually have unity and order within the church. So submission is a falling in of order. And the truth is we won't always agree. So we can't let agreement be the primary thing that holds us together. It needs to be this idea of submission, the ordering of ourselves under authority. Now, in the church world, again, this is maybe a little bit taboo to talk about, but I just want to highlight that in our lives, like we all practice this in almost every other area, don't we? In your job, come on, you don't always agree with your boss, do you? You don't always agree with your manager, but yet at the end of the day, you understand that there's an order of things. Or how many of you have played organized sports? Come on, not many. Okay, there was like 3 people in first service too. We gotta like get active, church. Come on. All right, so if you've played organized sports or if your kids have, you understand that there's an order of things, right? And there's a coach and there's a captain, and man, it might not always go the way that I want it to go. Why are we running these drills again? And why are we doing this? And I wanted to run a different play. But at the end of the day, we understand and we come into submission under their authority. Or even in our lives. Come on, those of you with kids, you want your kids to fall in order. That you want them to submit, right? Not just to have agreement with your children, but to understand, hey, there's an order of things in our household. And so this is a principle that we believe in almost every other area, whether we like our leaders or not. Yet in the church, somehow this has become a topic where we're afraid to highlight it or talk about it. And so this is so important for us, because I really believe that healthy teams, great families are the ones who don't just do this, but the ones who understand its value. Don't just fall into submission begrudgingly, like, well, I guess I have to. But great teams are the ones that say, no, I understand that there's an order of things, and I want to play the role that I can, the very best that I can, to the very best of my ability. And so I'm really excited to talk about this, because I think sometimes in church, because we have the option, Because we live in a world where we have the option to pick our church, to bounce around, to kind of go to different places to meet our needs. We have not really been taught this principle. Many Christians have never learned this principle, and I'm super passionate. And listen, if I come across as a little bit angry, I'm not. I'm just super excited and passionate. I believe in this so much in my life. In fact, let me just kind of take this away. It is a joy to pastor here. I really love it with all of my heart, and I think that as a church, we're doing this extremely well. I really do. In fact, that's what makes it a joy, is that we're walking together in unity and submission to each other. It is a beautiful picture. But for us, if we want to be a church that changes a region, then it's important that we understand the principles, that we can not just live in them, but understand so that we can pass them on. So I'm excited to teach through this. Here's the three things. We're going to talk about 3 areas that Christians should learn submission. 3 places that every Christian should understand and learn submission. So if you're taking notes, here's the first one. Ready? Number 1, it is submission to God. Submission to God. James chapter 4. James writes, he says, "What is causing the quarrels and fights among you? Don't they come from the evil desires at war within you?" So they're coming from your own heart. You want what you don't have, so you scheme and kill to get it. You were jealous of what others have, but you can't get it, so you fight and wage war on them to take it away from them. Yet you don't have what you want because you don't ask God for it. And even when you ask, you don't get it because your motives are all wrong. You want only what will give you pleasure. Okay, so James starts off, he says, hey, the difficulties, the fighting, the problems, they're stemming out of our own hearts. They're coming out of our own evil desires. And so as I was processing this verse over the last few weeks, I started to look at this from a different perspective. I just want to kind of broaden this for us a little bit. Because when I read it the first few times, I'm thinking, okay, there's fighting and people want what others have. You know, like I want your car and I'm going to beat you up and take it. But that's not really the full picture of this. I want you to think in our world today, even about things like influence or positions or having the loudest voice. And don't we see that in church, right? Like I'm going to fight to make sure that I get what you have, that I'm going to have more of an influence or more of a voice. I'm going to have a position that you hold. And so we see these different things. And God says that it's not that you're asking for these things, you're wanting these things because they're filling and fueling your own desires. Not to hold a position that has influence to benefit others, but you're doing it for your own selfish gain. And so I think that that's some perspective for us in our world right now. But James goes on, he says, "You adulterers, don't you realize that friendship with the world makes you an enemy of God? I say it again. If you want to be a friend of the world, you make yourself an enemy of God. Do you think the scriptures have no meaning? They say that God is passionate, that the spirit he placed within us should be faithful to him. And he gives grace generously. As the scriptures say, God opposes the proud, but gives grace to the humble." So then verse 7, ready? "So submit yourselves then to God. Resist the devil, and he will flee from you." All right, so the first place that we need to be is to be submitted to God. If we want to break out of this cycle, it's that we should be submitted to God. Now, in week 2, we talked about this, that every Christian, we should be working to take on the image of Christ. So that means that when there's disagreements and when there's arguments or, hey, I think we should do it this way, it means that when we have those conversations, it should be like Jesus is standing in the room. That's one way that we're submitted to God, by taking on the image of Christ. But I want to take that a little bit further this week. Remember, submission is putting things in a proper order. So submission to God is simply saying, God, I'm putting you in your rightful spot as the Lord of my life, as the leader of my life. And so as we put ourselves under God's proper authority and he takes the rightful place in our lives, well, when we disagree with what God says, well, guess what happens? We still listen. That's what submission to God looks like. We don't wait for him to convince us. We don't wait for it to click or to make sense in our mind. But we say, God, if you've said this, if you've given the instruction, I'm choosing to put myself in submission to you, a rightful place. And so when God says, love your enemies and do good to those who hurt you, I can go, I don't really like that. That's not really comfortable to do, is it? But still, my obligation is to come to a place of submission. Although I might not like it, although I might not want to do that, God, I'm still choosing to submit. I'm putting things in a proper order. Or when God says forgive, God, I don't want to. I don't like that. It's not fun to do that. But at the end of the day, submission says, even though I don't like it, or maybe even I don't agree with it, God, I'm putting you in the rightful place in my life as the Lord, as the leader. And I'm willing to submit my feelings or my opinions to come underneath. It's the same of every area, every topic in our lives. When we look at marriage and how that should work, or sex or sexuality, or anything the world is talking about today, or our finances, or our relationships, or our attitudes, or forgiveness, any topic, we're welcome to go to God and go, God, I don't know that I agree with this. I wrestle with this. I don't understand it. But God, I'm still willing to put myself under submission to you. I'm willing to follow what you say, even when I don't understand it or agree. And when we do that, did you see what happens? The Bible says when we humble ourselves, when we come to that position where we say, God, I might not get this or understand it, but I'm willing to put myself under your leadership, it says that he gives us grace. He gives grace to the humble. And so what that means is he says, like, hey, look, I get that you don't understand, so let me come alongside of you. That's what God literally does. He says, let me give you grace. I'm going to come alongside of you to make this easier for your journey. See, sometimes we think that the starting place is like, well, when this becomes easy, then I will do it. But the reality is that when we choose to do it, that's when we receive the grace from God. So it's a submission issue. So submitting to God means, God, even though I don't get it, even though I don't understand it, I'm willing to do things your way. And when we do that, there's a blessing. He gives grace. He comes alongside of us. It's a beautiful picture. So Christians, number one, the first thing that we need to learn is submission to God. The second one is this, it's submission to leaders. Now, this is true. Let me tell you, it's true in every area of our lives. These principles will carry over into your work. These will carry over into your family. These will carry over into the church, but since this series is called Build Your Church, we're going to focus primarily on the church, okay? But these are principles that are so important. Take a look at what Hebrews chapter 13 says. Have confidence in your leaders and submit to their authority, because they keep watch over you as those who must give an account. Do this so their work will be a joy, not a burden, for that would be of no benefit to you. Pray for us. We are sure that we have a clear conscience and desire to live honorably in every way. I particularly urge you to pray so that I may be restored to you soon. Okay, so two instructions that the writer of Hebrews gives is right here. It's to submit and pray for your leaders. Now, don't answer this out loud, but I want you to think, ask yourself the question, what percentage of Christians in America do you think actually do these two things? That are practicing submitting and praying consistently for their leaders? I would argue it's probably in single digits. But yet this is a command. This is something that is instruction to the church. That when we can learn and understand this, that it becomes a joy and not a burden. And it says that's good for everyone. The goal, even when we disagree. And let me tell you, you will. Like, there's going to be times that you disagree with those in leadership over you. But it says have confidence and submit, because they are the ones who must give an account. So again, submission means we are willingly putting ourselves under their authority. Not only when we agree, but even when we disagree. And it will be a joy, not a burden. Can I just give you some inside knowledge here? There's a lot of pressures that leaders carry. There's an unseen weight and pressures that many leaders carry. And in fact, I talk with pastors almost every week who are burnt out, tired, thinking about giving up. It's difficult. Leadership is difficult. And here's the part I want us to understand. As I talk with these pastors, they aren't stressed and burdened by ministry. They're not like, man, I don't know what I'm going to preach this week, and it's weighing on me, and it's so heavy, and I can't get through this. They're not like, our kids' ministry is growing, and I don't know what to do. Like, we have to create more space, and there's problems that we got to figure out to make more room for children. Those aren't the things that are weighing down pastors. Almost every single pastor that I talk to who's dealing with some kind of weight, it comes from unsubmitted leaders in church. Where there's not a proper order of things. That's what's causing the division and the burden. That it's no longer a joy to do ministry, but it is a burden. And so in our lives, I think it's so important that we understand this concept. And I'm really passionate about this issue because I've seen it in so many of other pastors' lives. And I think that this problem has actually changed the entire landscape of American Christian church, and not in a good way. Because pastors are now feeling the need to keep everyone happy. Like, hey, if we have to have agreement for you to be in the room, then it's now my job to try to tiptoe around every issue and make everyone as happy as possible. And so there's these pastors who are tiptoeing a minefield of this ever-changing landscape. And whether they know it or not, boards and congregations are neutering and limiting the impact that their pastors can actually have. And so this is so important. Pastors can't preach the word of God boldly. They can't cast vision. They can't lead effectively. They can't raise up and install leaders because boards and leaders and congregations are not truly submitted and under authority. There's not a proper order. Now listen, I really believe that it is just two sides of the same coin. I believe that this is the same problem that they were dealing with in 1 Corinthians and 2 Corinthians. A lack of order in the church. And it came from weak pastors and weak leaders. And so for us, I think it is so important that if we're going to be a church, if we're going to be people of God, we need to understand this and make sure that we live not just in agreement. Hey, prove it to me. Hey, convince me. But rather saying, I'm choosing to live submitted. And so where there's no order, either there's not a clear order or that order is not truly honored and celebrated. That's where we see this problem. And I'll tell you, there's pastors that I know personally who have been waiting years to enact simple changes. Pastors who are like, man, I really see God taking us here. Man, I really could see a community outreach program. I'd really love if we could be more like this, if we could be more focused in these areas. I just don't feel like I can make the changes yet because the church isn't ready. Or, man, if I feel like we do this too fast, then everyone will leave. And it's so heartbreaking to me to hear God visions and God ordained plans that are being, developed in these pastors who feel like they just have no power to actually step forward. And so this idea, I really believe is one of the reasons why we see the American church in the condition that it is. And so can I just speak to you, if you're listening to this, maybe if this is in your life, or even if you're at another church, let me just say that the same authority that you're afraid of giving your pastor is the same authority that's meant to empower the church. It's that same authority that's meant to move the church forward in vision and in faith. And so this is one of the reasons when pastors can't step out in faith and in vision, this is one of the reasons we see the American church being so wimpy. Because pastors who are meant to be strong leaders are constantly having to worry that if they don't play their cards perfectly, if they don't do everything right, that people will leave. So agreement versus submission, it really matters. The Bible gives the antidote. It says, have confidence in your leaders and submit to their authority. So this is it leads us to kind of a conundrum. Okay, I'll admit that if we have this mindset, it leads us to have to work backwards a little bit. Because if the church is not really a place just for our preferences, if we're not just supposed to church shop and go, well, this one fits all the things that I like about it, if that's not the heart, then what are we supposed to do? And I believe that this is a question that many Christians have never asked. We need to instead step back and say, is this a place that God has called me to be? Is this a church that God has led me and my family to? And if the answer is yes, then we need to come to a place of submission to say, if God has brought me here, then there is nothing, no problem, no disagreement, no church scandal that can pull me away from it. I'm here, I'm rooted until God moves me elsewhere. And when we have this mindset, we're coming into church saying, God has placed me here. God has placed my confidence to go, hey, you don't have to convince me to show up. You don't have to convince me to get involved. You don't have to convince me to tithe. You don't have to convince me to pray. I'm here, and if God has me here, I believe it's for a reason. And so I think that it's so important for us to understand, and look, I get it, because I can even hear it now, but Pastor Eli, what about when my leader is unhealthy? What about, my old church, or my boss at home, or my husband, he's just not really godly. What am I supposed to do? They aren't really healthy leaders. And look, I get it. I really do. And look, we got 35 minutes to talk about this, so I'm not talking about the extreme cases. I'm not talking about abuse, but for most things, here's what I would say. Thank God he calls us to unhealthy places. See, we have developed the mindset that everything needs to be perfectly cultivated for us. That it has to be the perfect environment for us to be able to grow or to be healthy in. But the truth is, God sometimes calls us to be under unhealthy leaders. Sometimes God calls us to be at a place that is unhealthy culture. Can I tell you what was really unhealthy when we stepped in? This church. But I'm glad God called us to be a part of the solution. Not just to go, well, this doesn't fit all my needs and it's not healthy and there's problems. No. God calls Christians to bring health. And so for us, that's the idea and the attitude that we have. That if God has called me here, regardless of its imperfections or problems or the leader's imperfections or failures, if I'm called to be here, there's nothing that can pull me away except God himself. That's really what makes submission work. And now, again, leaders aren't off the hook. I just want to be clear. Leaders should be held accountable. They are held more accountable, and they should be. I'm a big advocate. I'm not talking about just letting narcissism and abuse run rampant. They should be held to the highest standard, and the Bible's clear about that too. In fact, we believe in this so much. I just want to give you a little bit of confidence, because maybe you don't see the behind the scenes. I know you don't see the full picture. But let me tell you that every single one of your leaders at this church, they are held to a high standard. And they are constantly being poured into and being called up, and we're holding them accountable. We're having trainings every single month where we're talking about things like integrity and honor and joy. We're talking about how to be healthy leaders. And so they're being invested in and poured into on a weekly basis. And so as you're learning to submit to the leaders in this church, let me tell you that they are held accountable. And even us as lead pastors, my wife and myself, we have willingly practiced this principle of submission. We have put ourselves under overseers, other pastors who are leading, who we've given full permission. Speak into our lives. Tell us the things that you see. And guess what? There have been times that our overseers have looked at me and went, Eli, I don't know about that. That doesn't seem really healthy. Hey, I think you might need to make some changes in your life. And guess what? I didn't agree with them at first, but guess what I still said? Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am. We are in submission to you. So this is not just a moment thing, and it's not just for those who are sitting in seats today. This is a principle that we really believe God calls for the entire church, and we're practicing it here at Nickel City Church, because we want to be a church that empowers pastors, empowers leaders, encourages the church, and builds each other up. So healthy leaders is a part of that, absolutely. But the other side of it is we got to make sure that we truly are submitted, not putting undue pressure. Well, convince me. Well, if you can prove to me, then I will. But rather saying, if God has brought me here, it's for a reason. Okay, it leads us to the third one, the last thing here. It's submission to the vision. Every Christian should learn and understand submission to the vision. Proverbs says, where there's no prophetic vision, the people cast off restraint. But blessed is he who keeps the law. King James Version says this, where there's no vision, the people perish. And so for us, as we talk about vision, I want you to think about it kind of like a plan. Vision is where are we going and how do we get there? That's what vision is. And so I want you to just imagine, we just had the NFL draft and we get ready for the game. The Bills run out on the field, and instead of huddling up, they just all run to a different spot on the line. There's no headset, no coach calling in a play. They're just like, all right, let's figure it out. Down, set, hut, run. Come on, hey, I don't care how good Josh Allen is. That ain't working. And look, I get it. It sounds a little bit ridiculous, but so many people live their lives this way, without vision, without a God-given plan, without a vision of what God wants to do long term or how we get there. Many people run their families this way, without dreams of a God-ordained future. And so it is so important. Where there's no vision, people perish, people lack restraint, they just do whatever they want. But vision is the thing that keeps us on mission. So the first piece of it is personal. We need to make sure that we are going to God. God, what is your plan for my life? Can I just speak that to you? That God has a plan for your life. Did you know that? That there's something he desires at the end of your life that he wants to look and say, well done, good and faithful servant. He desires that for you. So there's a plan. So it's up to us to not just make it up, but say, God, what is your plan for my life? And how do I get there? What does that look like for me today? There's a verse that's a very common one. People love this. God is talking to the Israelites. Jeremiah 29:11. He says, for I know the plans I have for you. Plans to prosper you, not to harm you. Plans to give you a hope and a future. Listen, I really believe that that's God's plan for your life as well. Not all the moments, but the end goal. At the end of your life, I believe that God has something very good, just like we sang about, a good plan for your life. Might be uncomfortable along the way. You might need to grow some things in you. You might use problems or pain to develop you. But there's a plan that he has, and it's good. It's good. So the first area we need to say, God, I want to be faithful to the plan you have for my life. Okay. The next element of a vision or a plan is when we look at more of a corporate vision. So personally, we should say, God, what do you want for me? But then there's also a plugging into a greater vision. And this is something that God does. He gives to leaders, again, not because they're the best or because they always get it right, but by imparting vision, this is a way that God chooses to empower leaders. This is like a tool that he gives to leaders so they can lead. He gives them the vision first. So, hey, what are we supposed to do in our city, in our church? What is that supposed to look like? And how do we get there? And so for us, that's the question that we choose to ask. Like, well, what is God trying to accomplish? What does he want to do in this church, in our families, in our lives? And there have been people who have left the church, and we sat down and had meetings, and they're like, man, I really believe God has spoken to you guys. Like, I believe that God has given you guys a vision. Battle for Buffalo. I love that. It's just, why do I have to be involved? Like, why do I have to do it? God gave it to you. So why does it involve me? Well, I just want to say, what would happen? I just want to imagine if we applied that logic to every story in the Bible. Could you imagine Solomon? Hey, we're going to build the temple of the Lord. And the people went, yes, we believe that. Have fun. Or Nehemiah, all right, guys, it's time to rebuild the wall. Yeah, we need that. That'll be great for our city. That'll be great for our nation. Let us know when it's finished. Right? It's silly. See, but this is how God chooses to use leaders. He gives them visions that are too big for themselves with the idea that we come together. Let me just tell you, I'm so grateful. I grew up in a church in Pittsburgh, very healthy, with a leader who was very visionary. And he stood up before the church and said, I feel this is where God is taking us. And I watched the church go, if that's what God wants to do, we say yes. We come under submission to that vision. They planted 100 churches, 100 different churches. Isn't that amazing? Stood up there and said, we're going to plant 10 churches in 10 years. What turned into 100? Come on. But it comes from submission to a vision, tying into something greater than ourselves. And so as we wrap this up, as we wrap up our series, I just want to leave you very quickly with just two last thoughts. The benefits of practicing submission. So the first benefit is this, is that when we practice submission, it allows God to change our perspective, to change our hearts. I'm not talking about when we agree. Okay, when we disagree and we still practice submission, it gives God a chance to change our hearts. There's a friend of ours here at the church. He's now part of our leadership team. When he first came to the church, he was like, I don't know about this. This is different than the way that I used to do church. It's a lot louder. Like, people are raising their hands, and like, that's like different than I'm used to, and there's different stuff, right? But he said, I felt God tell me that this is the place for me and my family. So I came. And as he came, he didn't just sit with his arms crossed and go, wow, I would change all this. But he said, okay, well, I don't get it, but I'm going to choose to be in submission. And over time, God started to work in his life. And he went, oh, I see it. I get it now. And he would be the first to tell you, for me and my family, God used this place to change our lives. It came from a place of submission. See, listen, we think that agreement is where we need to start. Agreement is great. Living in agreement is fun. But that's not the starting place. The starting place is submission. It's, hey, I might not get it right now. I don't understand it right now. But when we say, I'm still choosing to practice submission, it puts us in a place where God can work in us, shift our perspective, and that we can get to a place of agreement. And when we do that, like, we're rolling and it's fun. But we think that that's where we got to start. We got to start with agreement. It's actually the opposite. We start with submission, and God leads us to agreement. Okay, so God changes our perspectives. The second thing is this, is that when we practice submission, especially when you have a bad authority over you, bad boss, maybe your husband is not living up to his duties or different things, maybe a pastor or a leader, when we still choose to submit, it gives God an opportunity to bless us. God will hold them accountable, absolutely, and he should. But it gives us a chance to be blessed by God. I think about Joseph. Joseph was under bad authorities his entire life. Yet as he submitted, God's favor rested on him, didn't it? Everywhere that he went, God's favor, it was evident on his life. And I really believe it's the same for us. We might go, man, I just wish they were doing stuff differently. But when we say, it's okay, I'm still choosing to live in submission, I'm coming under their authority. I might not like every decision. I might not like their personality. There might be some character flaws. But God, I'm going to do what's right. And when we practice obedience, God's grace is with us. God's power is with us. His favor is on us. He'll take care of them. He either change their heart or he'll hold them accountable. But for us, it gives us a chance to live in the favor of God in a brand new way. And again, it's such a short time. I mean, there's nuance to this, but the heart of it is this, is that God has a blueprint. And let's not throw it away just because maybe we've been hurt in the past or we've seen things in the past or we're skeptical. But rather, when we can learn to honor God out of reverence for Christ, submit to one another. When we do that, it puts us in a position to receive God's favor, blessing, to have unity in the church. So let's stand as we close out our series. Let's stand. We're going to just worship for another minute. Let's pray together. God, we come before you right now. God, we give you our lives. God, we choose right now to make you the Lord of our lives. God, we choose submission to you. God, in times that we don't see it, in times that we don't agree, we still put your word as our authority. God, for us, I pray that you would heal our hearts. Let us be people who empower and come alongside of and support and encourage the leaders in our lives. God, change us to not be skeptical or cynical or make them fight for it, but that we would be people who are truly a joy to the leaders around us. God, do a work in us as a church. Bring us to a place of unity. God, your plan for the church is beautiful. So that's what we're fighting for. God, we thank you. We look with expectation for it. In Jesus' name. Come on, let's worship.
I'll bring you more than a song, for a song in itself is not what you have required. You search much deeper within, through the way things appear. You're looking into my heart. Come on, sing, I'll bring you more. I'll bring you more than a song, for a song in itself is not what you have required. You search much deeper within, through the way things appear. You're looking into my heart. I'm coming back to the heart of worship. It's all about you. It's all about you, Jesus. I'm sorry, Lord, for the things I've made it. It's all about you. It's all about, we're coming back. I'm coming back to the heart of worship. It's all about you. It's all about you, Jesus. I'm sorry, Lord, for the things I've made it. It's all about you. 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 It's all about you, Jesus. It's all about you, Lord. Come on, sing this out one more time. I'm coming back to the heart of worship. It's all about you. It's all about you, Jesus. I'm sorry, Lord, for the things I've made it. It's all about you. It's all about you, Jesus.
Thank you so much, Pastor Eli, for sharing that message today. Something I really love that he said is that submission is a heart posture. It's a choice that we have to make day in and day out to be submitted to God and be submitted to those that he placed in our lives as well. So I just want to remind you guys, if you missed any of the messages from this series, go back and get caught up, and then come back next week as we kick off a brand new series and take communion together as well. So we'll see you guys next week at 8:30, 10 o'clock, and 11:30.